Oh, another one to go in for history is the Sturgis home. Are you familiar with the Sturgis home? That was an interesting. My dad got the listing because Sturgis lived right almost across the street from it. And that house wouldn't sell. They had a tough time selling because it was real big, an older home. So the fellow, you know Lee Daniels? Well, I knew his dad, Bert Daniels. He lived on Addison Avenue, about 3 doors from us. So I showed him that house. Said, hey, I'd like to maybe be interested in that house. But I got to sell my house. Well, like we have that today, and that's kind of a stickler. So when I told my dad, I said, hey, because we've been trying to sell the Sturgis house for maybe 2, 3 months, 4 months, I said, hey, I can sell that house for you, but if Mr. Sturgis or they would buy Daniel's house, then he'll buy their house. I said, okay, I'll talk to him. But to make a long story short, Sturgis did buy Bert Daniels' house, and we managed it for a few years, I might add. But that's how Bert Daniels bought that house, because you look at that house, and that's one of the prima donnas of Elmhurst is that Sturgis house on Cottage Hill Avenue.
That's a good place, I think, for us to take a break. And when we come back, I want to talk about the 3 of you together and the kind of reminiscing I know you do regularly. You're watching Elmhurst Time Travelers, the first show, actually, and we have 3 wonderful guests, and we'll be back in a moment.
We live in some of the best communities in Illinois. We care about our neighbors. We work hard to preserve our quality of life. But there's something we forget about in Elmhurst. A river runs through it, and it's up to us to protect it. Our storm drains flow to Salt Creek, and that means our harmful waste does too. So try using fewer chemicals on your lawn. Avoid leaking fluids from cars. And grow native flowers and plants to absorb more rainwater. Don't muddy the waters. Do your part to clean up Salt Creek.
Welcome back to Elmhurst Time Travelers, the very first program. We have 3 wonderful guests, Tom Myers, Charmaine Tellefson, and Ralph Tellefson. And at break, Charmaine was telling us a little bit about a Prince ice cream castle story. And I think, Charmaine, why don't we pick up with that?
We were talking about it because Prince Castle was built at about 1936, 37. And my brother and I, who were attending Emmanuel Lutheran School at that point, walked past it on our way home.
Now, where was it first? Where?
Oh, it was on the corner of North Avenue and York Street.
Okay.
On the west corner. And anyway, it was winter, it was bad, and he and I sort of got into the foundation of the Prince Castle, and then we couldn't get out. So eventually the fire department arrived and got the 2 of us out of there, and it was an amazing experience. We had never had any dealings with the fire department before, but my mother let us know that we better not do that again.
So wandering around Elmhurst and climbing into building
At
foundations.
At age 7.
At age 7, my goodness. Well, as I said before we went to break, I know the 3 of you regularly get together, and given your rich histories, there have to be stories that come up that are favorites, favorite memory or a favorite story or a favorite interaction between the 3 of you. You going to share any of those?
Well, I think one of the things that we do when we get together, Tom and I get together for luncheon, and then Shirley and Tom and Charmaine and I get together for dinner. We always have interesting conversations because we bring up something that will jog the memory of one of the other people, and one story leads to another. But one of the things that I like the best is when you start talking about the stores that used to be up and down York Street, and the managers that you knew at that point. Now, the A&P had a store on the south end of Elmhurst, and they had one over on Addison Avenue. But the guy that really attracted attention was Jimmy Fox, who was the manager on the south A&P store, and he built that into really a big business, and people just gravitated there. He was a popular manager, and he participated in the town, and so that was fun. And the thing that is amazing to me is that those kind of memories, unless somebody repeats them, you never hear those. I mean, it's just, it's just there, but there's nobody to draw it out and explain it and talk about it and so forth and so on. And I think that's one of the things that we've tried to talk about so forth. And I think one of the things that contributed to our focusing on this sort of thing was that our youngest daughter, who's a doctor, moved to Baltimore and was married there and has 2 children. And yet there was something about coming back to Elmhurst. When the 2 kids were born, she brought them back to Elmhurst to be baptized. And we thought, you know, why did you do that? You know, you have churches there, so forth and so on. And she said, because there's something about Elmhurst that is appealing. And I wanted the kids, even they were just babies, I wanted them to be able to tell the story that we brought them back to Elmhurst to be baptized because Elmhurst is in our blood.
Well, when you were talking about Jimmy Fox, up the street, up on just further north on York Street from Jimmy Fox's place, was my parents' place of business. It was a little so-called restaurant, but it was, they sold the tickets to the Aurora and Elgin. It was right on the corner by the what is now the Prairie Path, but the good old Chicago Aurora and Elgin was right there, and so they operated this store, and this is the inside of it. And then when I got to be 15 or so, I worked there. My first job was a soda jerk. And then also, my first job was to clean the bathroom at this place.
So the Green Rivers and the Cherry Vanillas and
Yes.
whatnot, all that, all
Yeah.
what you...
I still make the best chocolate soda around, so, but it was a fun job, and I got to know a lot more people, like Bill Bauer. He used to come into the store, and lots of other nice people came in. And they were building a lot of houses in Tuxedo Park at that point, so we had a blue plate special, which we served every day. And then
one thing I didn't even have in my notes, and was the Aurora and Elgin.
Yeah.
That was a very interesting, Northwestern, of course, the north side, and I'm going to say something about that. But the Aurora and Elgin, the advantage of them, they would run later at night. I think Chicago Northwestern, if you're in my many, many years, younger days, go downtown in a day, we could come back on the north, or the Aurora and Elgin about an hour or so later, like maybe 12:30, 1 o'clock, whereas the Northwestern might have quit around 10:30, 11 o'clock. But I remember the day they shut that down. Bill Stratton was the governor, and I guess financially and so forth. I think they made a big, big mistake, but then it was losing money. So, you know, a lot of people have a tendency to be big shot with other people's money. If they're losing, then possibly they should have done it. But I remember the Aurora and Elgin, and that's the store.
Do you remember the cannonball that came from Chicago directly out to Lombard? And it came through Elmhurst at 6 o'clock, right at York Street. My grandmother's house was at 533 South York. It was the little house that nobody ever saw. It was a green asbestos shingled house. And on the other side of her was the where the Knights of Columbus is now, was a garage, Timmy's garage. And on the top of that was the fire whistle that told the kids to get home at 6 o'clock. And so the fire whistle went off at 6 o'clock, the cannonball went through at 6 o'clock, and my grandmother's house rose about 3 inches right off the foundation.